Our first tickets to the CrossFit Games have officially been punched.
Incredible. I mean, I have no words. You can see me crying. I'm just very happy.
And if you didn't see the European semifinals or watch until the very end, Chase's final call pretty much summed it all up.
It's been a wild ride. Start to finish, top to bottom. Ending with cheers, tears, athletes returning, athletes going away.
It was a really exciting weekend. Europe is a stacked field. We also had Asia, and we will talk about Asia as well, but we are going to start with Europe because especially on the men's side, we saw some surprises. So let's take a look at the leaderboard and I'll explain what happened, who's going to the games, and what you missed. First, we had Lazar Dukic, and he was a heavy favorite to win this semifinal. He's won the Europe semifinal the last 2 years and did it for a third year in a row. So no real surprises there, although Yona Koski was a big name to challenge him this year. Yona won both the Open and quarterfinals, not in the Europe semifinal or the Europe region, but in the entire world. So coming into this, he had all the momentum, and I think a lot of people thought it was going to be his to lose, and he did that. He did lose it completely. Yona Koski ended up in 13th place, and to be honest, after the first 2 days, I'm pretty surprised to see him that high on the leaderboard. He was, I believe, 34th after day 1, and then 24th after day 2, and made his way all the way to 13th, which that was actually pretty impressive. Impressive enough? No. Did he do enough? No. Yona Koski was the biggest surprise, I would say, of this semifinal. Day 1, taking that 34th for the first and only event. Then there was an 11th place finish. I had some hope that Yona was going to make his way up the leaderboard and be in contention. Then the second event on day 2, he finished in 26th, and that just felt like the nail in the coffin at that moment and turned out to be the case. On day 3, which had the most events, 3 events, half the points, he had an 8th, 15th, and a 4th. Great finishes, just not quite enough. He was only about 30 points out of that 10th place position. If he had done a little bit better on event 5, there could have been some hope, but after a 15th place finish in event 5, he would have had to win the final event, and even that wouldn't have been enough without having had a lot of help from a lot of people. It didn't happen. Yona Koski, 9 times CrossFit Games athlete, winner of the Open and quarterfinals in 2024, will not be appearing at the 2024 CrossFit Games. Sad day. I don't know if there was something up. He says he just couldn't find that 6th gear. That's what we heard on the announcing and in some other media. Maybe he has an injury he's not talking about. Maybe he's sick. He looked a little pale to me, although he is pale generally, but he looked extra pale to me in an interview with Lauren Khalil on the Talking Lit Fitness's Instagram page. So that could be something. He could be sick, just feeling off. Emma McQuaid, who we'll talk about later, she was feeling sick going into this weekend's event. She was like bedridden on Wednesday and didn't even know if she can compete, and then made it to the games. Maybe there's something going around over there in Europe. I don't know, but did not look like himself. And actually right below Yona in 14th is Colin Bosshard, and he was looking really good to make it to the games. Completely imploded on that final event, having a 37th place finish. And for the second year in a row, at least, coming very, very close to making it to the games and just not quite doing it. But let's go back up the leaderboard and talk about the people who you will be seeing in Texas later this year in August. So I mentioned Lazar already, did great this weekend, came in second in the first event, and then just had solid finishes all the way through, top 10 all the way through. He had a 2nd, 7th, 5th, 4th, 8th, 8th. Didn't win anything, didn't need to, looked great. excited to see him back, and he will be going back with his brother. We'll talk about that in a second as well. But second, we have Jelle Hoste. He was in first place for a little bit this weekend. That was awesome to see. Jelle kind of burst onto the scene last year, and this year looking even better than he did last year. Super impressed by Jelle's performance, and I think the best is still yet to come for him. I heard on the broadcast that he just quit his full-time job, and he's going to be pursuing CrossFit full-time. So we'll see how that change helps him improve. He's a very similar athlete to Brent Fikowski, who had a very similar path where for the first couple years he competed, still worked, quit his job, continued to rise. We may see the same from Jelle Hoste. So I'm excited to see Jelle back at the games. He kind of snuck in there last year, and this year he did it with no sneaking. He was well above the cut line, about not quite 150 points, but that's a lot of points. Plenty of room. Wasn't really sweating that last event, and had a really good weekend. 7th, 6th, 1st, 2nd, 16th, and a 6th. But overall, really solid from Jelle. Excited to see him. In third, Hendrik Haapalainen, an athlete that I thought would do well. I thought would make it back to the games. I thought he would do it quietly. And I would say all of those things happened. He did win that final event, and that was the only real noise he made. And he cleared the cut line by 100 points. So that win of the last event wasn't really that significant in the sense of, will he make it to the games? Awesome to be able to do that at the end of the weekend, but wasn't like, oh my God. It was kind of like, well, just, doing Hendrik Haapalainen things, and he did it. In fourth, we have Anol Akai, and he made some moves at the end of day 3. He had a 4th place finish on the snatch event, which that snatch event was awesome. But he had a 4th place finish in that, and then a 2nd in the final event, doing everything he could to make sure that he was going to go to the CrossFit Games. Rookie, punch his ticket. Had him in my field in my predictions, a little bit lower than this, but not surprised to see him there. In 5th, Luka Dukic, and you would think Luka was excited, and he was, but I almost think Lazar, his brother, was more excited than him. Lazar is Luka's biggest cheerleader, and I love to see the interaction between those two guys because you could see the love there, and you could see how excited it is for Lazar to be going back with his brother. He feels his brother should have been to the games 2 more years than he has. So excited to see Luka and Lazar take Texas together, train together these next couple of months, and really good story there. Awesome to see it. They did an interview at the end where I guess when Luka's soccer career ended or football career ended, he was devastated. And he says that Lazar introducing him to CrossFit literally saved his life. So I think CrossFit is an amazing community that does amazing things for a lot of people. And that is an example of that, and really special between those two guys. In 6th, Victor Hofer. And Victor, he was in everyone's predictions to finally punch his ticket to the CrossFit Games. Another rookie. He was competing in France in front of a hometown crowd. And you could see that throughout the weekend. Him just like getting chanted on by the crowd, him waving to the crowd. A lot of excitement around Victor Hofer this semifinals from around the world, but especially because this happened in France, the Europe semifinal. A lot of support behind him there. Started out the weekend with a 30th place finish, then a 12th and 16th on day 2. Not quite what you'd hope for, but then first place in that handstand walking event today, then a 10th and a 7th, just doing what he could, getting all top 10 finishes in day 3 to make it official. He was probably celebrating a little early because he was in the second to last heat of the last event and looked really excited. And Chase was like, don't celebrate just yet, Victor. And he finished in 6th. So he did make it, clearing that cut line, but only by less than 30 points. It was tight here for the men. There was a lot of shaking up at the bottom of this leaderboard. So in 7th, we have an athlete that has been around for so long, Bjorkman Karl Gudmundsson, BKG, punching his 11th ticket to the CrossFit Games. I don't even have enough fingers. He is the first athlete to punch 11 consecutive tickets to the CrossFit Games. And there was Ben Smith, who did go 11 times, but he was invited his final year. No invitation for BKG. He earned that ticket in a very, very tough European field. I think, if I have to predict right now, that BKG will do just as well, if not better, at the CrossFit Games. He is a perennial top 10 Games athlete. Few little bobbles here and there, but really a strong Games athlete. I think he's even better at the Games than he is at semifinals. So excited to see him going back for his 11th year. Yay, BKG. In 8th, we have Harry Lightfoot, who almost worked to lose this in the final day. He had some solid finishes at the beginning of the weekend, 11th, 9th, 4th, 3rd. And then the last two events, he finished 29th and 27th. Basically, I think he wanted to give his whole family and friends and training staff a heart attack, because that is not the way you want to end your weekend. And he was only 11 points shy of the cut line. So he made it though, and that's all that matters. In 9th, we have a name of someone that I didn't really know much about. We'll have to find out more about. He is an athlete that just killed it on day 3, which day 3 was moving day with the different format we saw this year. In the past, we've had day 2, Saturday, usually be moving days when we had 7 events. Sometimes we would have 3 on Saturday, 2 on Friday, 2 on Sunday. Now we had 1 event on Friday, 2 on Saturday, and then 3 on Sunday. Really allowed people to make some big moves on Sunday. And Callum Clements would be an example of someone who made some big moves on Sunday. So he finished, overall, he was 32nd out of the first event, 17th, 19th. No one really paying attention to him going into day 3. But then a 7th, a 5th, and a 3rd. Just killing it to win, to make it on the final day. Really impressed there. Interested to see how he does at the Games, and keep an eye on him. And finally, we have the 10th, and we'll talk about the 11th place athlete. That is Moritz Fiebig in 10th, just 1 point ahead of Uldis Upeniks, who Uldis, we would have thought after day 1 and 2 that he was going to the CrossFit Games, and he just slid right down that leaderboard. So Uldis Upenik won the first event, won the second event, so came out 1 and 2. I thought he was, he didn't have a great 3rd event. He came in 25th, but I thought he would make it to the Games. 2 first place finishes. And if he did tie for points with Moritz Fiebig, he would have won the tiebreak because he had more first place finishes. And that is usually how the tiebreak is done. But that is not what happened. He finished first, 25th, 17th, and 28th, then 14th. Just didn't do enough, didn't do quite enough to make it back to the CrossFit Games. Just a disappointing finish for a couple of the guys here. Uldis Upeniks being one of them, Joona Koski, disappointing weekend. Very interesting on the men's side. Now we will head over to the women's side, check out how they did there. So your reigning CrossFit champion, Laura Horvath, was in this field, and she did champ stuff. She finished in first, winning the semifinals by 30 points pretty handedly. I thought she was going to win this semifinals, so not super surprised to see this, but great weekend for Laura. She started with a 7th place finish, which I was like, this is fantastic for Laura. 7th on a running event, amazing. And I know for a lot of people, they'd be like, 7th and fittest on earth. It was a fantastic start for her, because then she goes on for 7th, 1st, 3rd, 1st, 2nd. Just super impressive. She was even like hyping up the crowd going into the 5th event, the one with the snatches, saying that everyone should hang around and watch because it was just going to be a fantastic event. And it was fantastic watching her.
This next workout is going to be epic, so you guys should stay around and watch us, the girls, and definitely the guys, because it's going to be a next level race.
In second, her training partner, Gabby Magala, who had a great start to the weekend. I didn't think the last events were great for her to continue to beat Laura, because she was ahead of Laura initially, but She doesn't need to, just gotta get to the games. Second place to the fittest woman on earth. What can you do? So she finished in first, second, seventh, second, fourth, 10th, all top 10 finishes for Gabby. Super impressive weekend. She had a little bit of a bobble on the end of that final event. That's why she got that 10th, but doesn't matter. Going to the games, she was gonna be second, I think, regardless of that finish. In third, we have Emma Tall. Surprised to see her on the podium, not surprised to see her going to the games. Fourth, Karen Freyova. I thought she had a chance at the podium. She did finish fourth, but she did also compete in Athens just last weekend, but still looking great, going to the games, did really well on the final day with a fifth, and a third. In fifth place, a surprising athlete, a rookie. There are 3 rookies on the female side. Amy Kringle. She looked really good all weekend with her worst finishes coming on day 3. She was in that 3rd place position for a really long time, lost it on the final event on Sunday. She was struggled with that dumbbell lunge, but she was safely within the field. She may be a little disappointed that she fell from podium to 5th, but a fantastic weekend for Amy Kringle, going to her first CrossFit Games. She had a 2nd, 4th, 5th, 6th, then a 13th and 11th, but really very, very solid all around in this tight European field. In 6th, an athlete that was crying, looked so good most of the weekend. Day 1, she had that running event, came in 23rd. Not a horrible finish, but it put her in the 2nd heat. She won the 2nd heat in both events on Saturday with a 3rd and a 6th. Claudia Gluck just had the field, the entire arena cheering her on. She is a French athlete. The competition was in France, hometown, just getting to do this in front of her hometown. Super, super impressive from Claudia Gluck. And then finishing off the weekend with a 12th, an 8th, and a 5th. Really, really strong performance. Excited to see her go to the CrossFit Games. And the 3rd female rookie, that is Linda Kiesman. I don't know a whole lot about Linda, but I'm sure we will learn a lot more in the coming weeks and at the CrossFit Games. She finished 7th, just had a solid weekend. She didn't really impress on any particular event, but she didn't do poorly anywhere. She just was very consistent, just kind of like a BKG athlete, finishing that same placement, just doing what you need to do, not making too much noise, but getting there. In 8th, Alicia Fuliano. I thought she would be a little bit higher than where she ended up, but had some really great events. Won that snatch event, looked fantastic there, set a world record on that. Very impressive there. She has recently also become a full-time athlete, leaving her profession, so it'll be interesting to see if she can hold on for a couple more years at the CrossFit Games. She'll be there this year. And Emma McQuaid, an athlete that was on the bubble, I mentioned her a little bit earlier. She was sick on Wednesday before semifinals began on Friday. Thought she wasn't gonna be able to compete. Called home and was like, maybe I should just get back on a plane. I don't even know if it's worth trying. Made it in 9th place. She had a decent finish on that final event, so wasn't really sweating. Kind of knew that she was going to hear her name called, and just really good weekend for her to make it back despite a little bit of adversity there. And finally, Jacqueline Dahlstrom. Now, Jacqueline Dahlstrom, she had a rough semifinals last year, not making it, having some issues with her runner in the assault runner event, and makes it back this year. You could see when they announced her name, the sigh of relief on her face. This was a battle for her, but she was in the top heat all weekend. Jacqueline Dahlstrom, she did come in 10th, but it is interesting because the point spread was not at all like the men's, where we had Moritz Fiebig and Uldis Upenix with 1 point separating them. On the women's side, there was a lot of points separating 10th from 11th. It was 396 to 355, so that would be 41 points. Jacqueline Dahlstrom, I think she knew her name was going to be called, but to have to wait for it to be called in 10th, you could just see it on her face. It was a long wait, but she did it, and awesome to see her going back. Maybe she'll have another big event like the sandbag event where she just demands everyone's attention. Cool to see her going back. I know I saw her, like I said, breathe that sigh of relief. She's excited to be booking her trip to Texas. Women that didn't make it, that were kind of on the cusp. Andrea Solberg had a very bad last 2 events. She was in the top 10 for a little bit, just didn't quite make it. 30 Helgadottir, she's been to the games many times, the first time in 2012, still competing at semifinals, finished 16th. Impressed with the longevity there. Wasn't really that far out, but pretty impressive weekend even from her. Miriam van Roer, she didn't have a great end to her weekend, and she had been training high rocks for a long time. Maybe with another year of CrossFit, we can see her back at semifinals.
And I have to mention Rebecca Vidison. She was killing event 3, would have had a great time. She comes down from this rope climb, lands funny, likely tore her ACL. She tried to get up. She tried to continue competing. She actually gets back on the bike and bikes for a bit. She goes back to her box to do some box jumps, and when she steps off, she steps on the bad leg, collapse there. Very, very sad to see her season end this way.
Let's take a quick look at the teams that will be going to the games. I did a live where I talked more about this on Saturday, and I talked about them on Friday as well, but we're just gonna go through the top 8 teams going. So first we had CrossFit Prestanda Krieger. Krieger's a name you'll hear multiple times. That is the training program run by Kristen Holte. She was a great games athlete who has since retired, but fantastic athlete, fantastic programming, and you see that here. So let's go through the teams. CrossFit Prestanda Krieger in first. In second, CrossFit Walleye Orca. And that is a team to watch during the games because they have a lot of great athletes. Mia Hesketh, Christoph Horvath, Jamie Simmons, Elliot Simmons. Will be a very good team. CrossFit Oslo, Krieger PSL. Oslo is also a name you'll hear a whole bunch. Again, CrossFit Oslo, Krieger BLST, I think it's Blast, then CrossFit Butcher's Lab, then CrossFit Oslo Krieger Riz, 23 CrossFit, the program Motion, and then CrossFit Holistic taking that final spot. We're gonna go over to Asia, just touch on Asia. Carson is hitting me. Okay, hi. We're gonna go over to Asia. We will just touch on Asia. So the Asia semifinal. On the team side, we had the team that I said was going to be the only team that mattered here, having 4 first place finishes and 1 second. That is KT CrossFit Kolesnikov team. They are going to the games, and there are no surprises there. Now let's head over to the individuals. The 3 top individuals are in the order for the women. We have 3 women going to the games here. The 3 women are the 3 women I predicted. So really no surprises. In the order I predicted them, that would be Sarah Kai, Sungjin Choi, and then Dawan Chung. Dawan will make her first trip to the CrossFit Games, but she has been a semifinals athlete, regionals athlete for a very, very long time. So Sarah Kai and Sungjin Choi have both been in that 20 to 30 range multiple times at the games. So they actually do fairly well. And this is why we're seeing Asia get 3 instead of 2 spots to the CrossFit Games. Now let's go over to the men. And the men are in a different order than I had predicted them, but it is the same 2 men. Only 2 men go from this region. That is Ivan Kurkartsev and Arthur Semenov. Making their way to the CrossFit Games, the 2 men I predicted. No surprises there, but it'll be interesting to see how they do at the CrossFit Games. Week 1 of semifinals is a wrap. It was super fun. I am excited for the next 2 weeks. If you're excited too, make sure you subscribe. I will be previewing and then doing wrap-ups, recaps of all of semifinals. Then there'll be some other stuff, like I like to share my training and stuff if you're new here, so that'll be here too as a more average athlete, so subscribe for that. Also subscribe for a look at my baby who has sat here the entire time. This is Carson. Yes, Carson. He is named after where the CrossFit Games used to be, Carson, California. My little baby. He was hanging out the entire time I did that video. I was just petting him with one hand. But I appreciate you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and that'll be soon. All right, bye. Go get it.